What's up, y'all? Welcome into Believe in Kentucky. Cole Park back in here with us. My name is Vinny Hardy. Did a couple episodes where Cole was doing his thing for the Cat's Paws and covering some soccer action, and you just been doing all kind of stuff, CP, man. Glad to have you back, though.
Glad to be back. It feels like it's been a while.
That soccer had to be interesting. I was following along with some of it, and well, I mean, it was kind of a precursor to the Kentucky Auburn game. Not a lot of scoring, and you were there in person for it, right?
I was, yeah, that was the KHSAA Kentucky High School soccer tournaments. I covered. Was doing some freelance work for the Louisville Courier Journal, so obviously covering the teams that they center on for the men's side. I believe South Oldham lost in just a gut wrenching penalty. The whole game 0-0 until it goes to penalty kicks. South Oldham takes the advantage, and then Covington Catholic comes back and blocks two straight. They blocked one, and then the other one sailed over the goal. But high school soccer. Just a heartbreaker. And then the second game, just the complete reversal. I mean, true David and Goliath fashion, but not with David winning. St. X, the Goliath, just absolutely stomped on Bryan Station, who had made it the furthest they've ever made in program history. 3-0 in that one. I think they scored two back-to-back goals off of just mistakes. And then I came back the second day for the women's semifinals. I did not need to cover the first game. No one in really the Louisville area from that, but I believe Highlands won the first game. And then another Goliath in the sport, Sacred Heart, with a former Jamaican national team player as their head coach. I found out it's kind of cool. They ended up getting the win over Lexington Catholic, and in both cases, Sacred Heart went on to win a record-setting, I think, 9th KHSAA state title, and I think St. X went on to win a record-setting, 17th KHSAA state title. So in both cases, the best team in the history of the sport in the state won again. Tends to be how that goes.
So St. X for the boys, Sacred Heart for the girls.
Yes, basically, think a year in college and basketball and football where who won it? Oh, it was Alabama, and in basketball it was a Kentucky or a Duke or something like that. Like the big dogs won again. That's how it went in the high school soccer this year.
So Sacred Heart with the girls basketball and girls soccer dynasty, just running the state of Kentucky. All right.
St. X is pretty great in football too.
Yeah. So congratulations to those athletes and coaches and students and everybody at those respective schools for bringing home yet another trophy for the trophy case. Gotta make room for more hardware coming. So we got to check that out, man. Then it was down to Auburn for Kentucky Auburn, and we broke our SEC losing streak. Period. Still got a home losing streak to worry about, and we'll see what happens this weekend. But Cats 10, Auburn 3. Got just you look like you said before we started. It was something, but hey, it's a win, and you feel a lot better than we had been feeling.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it was like we said before we got on this show. I mean, that it doesn't, apart from some interesting offensive play calls throughout that one at times, that felt like you went back to old reliable, whipped out the cookbook, and made the Mark Stoops special. That was exactly what many Kentucky fans have come to expect. The offense took a step back, but wasn't necessarily bad per se. Obviously Auburn has a great defense with then DC, now interim head coach DJ Durkin. Obviously he was former head coach at Maryland, had some things happen there. But regardless, obviously a former head coach in his own right, a very great defensive mind. Auburn's always had some pretty strong defenses. It just was the offense and Hugh Freeze that wasn't quite working there. But Kentucky played, once again, phenomenal defensively. I would even go as far as to say this could, it depends, because Texas, you had the special teams aspect going into it, but this might be the best the defense has played all year. The special teams was phenomenal and a huge underrated part of that game. I mean, the punt team, they kept pinning them and pinning them and pinning them. I mean, it was brilliant to watch. Always reliable in the offense. It took a step back from recent weeks. It wasn't quite as good as we hoped it would be. A couple mistakes there from Boley and different guys, but it did enough to get the win. And That's what it came down to. 10-3 final score. One single touchdown scored in the game. We went to the media room. We had to walk onto the field and through the end zones, and I scored more touchdowns than Auburn did in that one by crossing the plane into the touchdown. But no, it was a great one. Obviously, again, offense took a step back, but as Mark Stoops said after the game, offense, defense, special teams, it really felt like the team complemented itself in that game. And it might be probably the most complete game we've seen all year, because even in other wins, even in other, close ones, it always felt like there was some aspect that wasn't working, whether it was the defense just being non-existent against Tennessee or even playing pretty bad against Eastern Michigan, whether it was the offense struggling to get going earlier in the season, or if it was the special teams, just not really clicking in the Texas game, giving them great field position, gifting them points. They really put it all together against Auburn. And for the first time, it felt like all three units really worked together, and it wasn't pretty, but we saw the result. For the first time in over a calendar year, the Kentucky Wildcats won an SEC football game.
Yeah, since Oxford last year, so unbelievable. Good to see. Uh, got a W. Like you said, everything you said, you hit the nail on the head with all of that. The struggles. You got Florida coming in, and you try to build on what you just did in all phases of the game. Just try to carry everything over. Um, Florida coming in without a coach there, in disarray, and you knew it was coming, and Billy made it last a year longer than people thought. So they come in with another Billy. They're just like Billy's right now. Billy Gonzalez leading the Gators. I'm gonna pop up there for that one, so I'll might try to holler at you, meet you in person or something. I'll be at the basketball game too. I'll be at the Valpo game Friday, so doing the double dip
Oh,
this weekend.
Beacons
So
now. They're the Beacons these days. Did not used to be the Beacons. Now they are the Beacons.
Valpo?
Mm-hmm.
What did they used to be?
I believe they were the Crusaders.
And now they're the Beacons?
The Beacons.
It's okay. I didn't look at you. I'm not going to doubt you or contradict you on any of that, because look,
I'm way too into the weeds about this stuff. You probably have no idea that the University of New Orleans is switching from the UL the UL system back to the LSU system, and the New Orleans Privateers in the Southland Conference, formerly like navy blue and blue, they're switching now to purple and gold as their new colors because they are joining the LSU system. So they'll be LSU New Orleans now. So I'm way too in the weeds about all these random small schools changing things.
So LSU New Orleans, that's like saying UT Martin or something like UT Chattanooga.
Yeah. I think they'll still probably just go by New Orleans, but they'll technically be LSU New Orleans. I mean, it's no different than like Fresno State is technically like CSU Fresno. They just go by Fresno State. Obviously UNC Charlotte got so big that now they just go by Charlotte. So probably just still go by New Orleans, but they will be switching their color scheme from a mixture of blues to purple and gold to join the LSU sports system. The Southland Conference's New Orleans Privateers. Just a random bit of ball knowledge for you today.
Yeah.
The happenings of smaller schools around the country.
In Louisiana, who has no equal, no competition when it comes to, which is so weird. There is Louisiana, and they're Louisiana State, but it just doesn't even matter. You think Mississippi State, Ohio State, which in case Ohio is the little brother, but
I mean, same with Penn State. Penn. I mean, Penn's an Ivy League college. So.
Yeah. So weird. But Louisiana, everybody grows up wanting to play for LSU. They don't have to recruit against anybody significantly close to being on their level, and Brian Kelly still messed all that up. But yeah.
I think he was the first coach in a long time to not win a national title there, and that's unfortunate. I mean, me personally, I'm not going to say that's unfortunate. Never been a huge fan. I questioned the hire when it was first made, but for his sake, not ideal in the LSU history books.
Yeah, our guy on the network, on Believe Network, Blake Ruffino, covers LSU and does Are You Serious Sports Network. He does a daily show, so he's been having all kinds of fun. But I think even when he got hired, we all were laughing, and like when he did the whole family in the gym, and some of them were trying to defend it, and they were excited about it because he's coming to Notre Dame, and now he was close there, and he's just going to come down here, and all the resources, and the next progression is he can get it done here, and of course it didn't work, and I'm like, look, man, if he had gotten hired by Florida instead of you guys at LSU, because and did the whole family in Gainesville, you guys would have laughed him out of the room. But since
Mhm.
he's working for you, you guys want to try to
Yeah.
defend it and make the fit work, and it just
To me, it kind of just felt like not quite on the same level of James Franklin, but it kind of felt like Notre Dame is a brand that should be good. And it kind of felt like more often than not under Brian Kelly, I felt disappointed in Notre Dame. It was kind of just like they're there, but they're never like there. You know what I mean? Like they're always in the conversation. They're always close. They went to the playoffs several times, but they never really felt like that much of a legitimate threat to win it all. And then, obviously he had some off the field, some on the practice field controversies
yeah.
at LSU or at Notre Dame. And
Him and
then when
D,
LSU,
him and DJ both with some.
yeah, I mean, the SEC had 1 week of, but won't say any more than that on air, but 1 week of, but regardless, when he got hired at LSU, I was skeptical because, LSU, it's easy to kind of forget about it at times because they do kind of fluctuate, I feel like, in their way. They're not really like an Ohio State in the sense that they're always there every year. But LSU's still a job that, like, every, 3 to 5 years, they'll probably be a national title contender,
Yeah.
at least. Probably should be a contender most years, but like they'll probably win one at least fairly frequently. Not necessarily an every year type of thing the way Bama was doing, but with more frequency than someone who doesn't win it much at all. But I just didn't really necessarily believe. Obviously, like you said, comes out with the fake accent. I felt even before that it wasn't even beyond my personal doubting of him as a coach from Notre Dame. I didn't feel like it was a great fit. And I think that that's sometimes underrated in sports. Obviously, there's a lot of very talented coaches, there's a lot of very talented players, but fit is also important, especially in college sports more than the pros. I would say colleges are so ingrained in their communities, they're so ingrained in cultures, and
Mhm.
you can't compare, the culture of Boston College to even someone in their own conference like Clemson. There are different cultures around these schools. And even in the SEC, Mississippi State's got their cowbells. They've got the way they are. Ole Miss has their fans the way they are. Like when I say all these teams, you can kind of picture, some stereotypes, sure, but like you can picture a type of fan, how their
Mhm.
fans act, how their fans feel about things that are important to their fans, the history of those schools. And I never really felt like Brian Kelly fit LSU. It kind of felt like a weird pairing that didn't belong. And kind of again, like James Franklin, LSU maybe less than Penn State with national relevancy coming into the season, but another one that, it kind of felt like this needs to be their year. They need to go to the playoffs. This is their chance. They got Nussmeier back, and obviously he's been playing hurt for a lot of this season, and his numbers have dipped a bit. But you brought back a lot of really key pieces. You got Nussmeier to stay instead of going to the NFL. It felt like this was going to be the year they were going to put it together if they were going to, and same as Penn State, just has not gone that way. They've lost some games they weren't expected to lose. They've fallen out of it. Most people consider them not really in that conversation anymore to even make the playoffs. Penn State might even make a bowl game, God forbid. We don't know. But
Mhm.
it's taken a nosedive in what was supposed to be the year theoretically. And I'm not trying to toot my own horn. I get lucky sometimes. You can ask our old buddy Aaron Gershon. I called Buzz Williams to Maryland even before that was really
Wow.
reported that often. I called that. I remember we were somewhere for a game and we were sitting in a bar and I was like, I don't have the best sources on this specifically, but you want a little bit of information. Watch out for the Maryland job after Willard left. I said, watch out, Buzz Williams. And I remember
Mm.
Aaron told me, he's like, you think so? You think Buzz is going to leave A&M for Maryland? I said, all I'm saying is it's possible. He's a guy that likes to move around. He can't. His best success came, I think, you can say Marquette, but I would say his most success that he found the most um, joy out of was Virginia Tech in the
Yeah.
DMV area. Um, I said it wouldn't shock me. It's kind of the conversation people are having about Shane Beamer right now in South Carolina, and the Virginia Tech thing
Yeah.
is you might not be on the hot seat right now necessarily, but if you do what you've been doing for another year or two, those conversations could start to happen. And do you want to even deal with that? Sometimes it is better to get a fresh start somewhere that you think you can succeed and just not have to deal with all of that. And that's somewhere he likes to be. I said, watch it happen. And it happened. So I will toot my own horn on that, but I'm not going to try to toot my own horn too much on this. But I said at the start of the season, obviously going into this year, there was a couple, the SEC's having a bit of a weaker year than normal, we could say. It feels like there's not as much strength in the conference. It's still a very, deep conference, still a lot of competitive games, but it does feel like a lot of teams are a bit lower than normally they would be. There was obviously going to be several coaching changes. Obviously, our, Kentucky's head coach, Mark Stoops, has been in a lot of those conversations, but we saw Billy Napier get fired. That wasn't shocking. That was one a lot of people expected. We saw Hugh Freeze get fired. That one didn't shock me either. Even before they kind of took their nose, I knew that wasn't really trending the right direction. Sam Pittman at Arkansas, that kind of just felt like a matter of time kind of thing. But there were other jobs, that was before Auburn opened, obviously, and Kentucky hasn't opened, might not open. So, but people would say, there might be even more jobs in the SEC that open. And I said, I agree. I said, I agree there will be. And obviously the obvious one's Auburn. But I said, just hear me out. Keep an eye on LSU. I also said keep an eye on Oklahoma. That hasn't quite come to fruition. But I said keep an eye on LSU. That one would not shock me. And here we are talking on the show. Brian Kelly is not the coach at LSU. Hugh Freeze is not the coach at Auburn. Billy Napier is not the coach at Florida. A lot of coaching jobs open right now.
Yeah, absolutely. So unbelievable how quickly it all transpired, but it's still, like you said, not shocking for some of these things, just because Billy hung around a year longer than everybody thought. Maybe it was house settlement or whatever, but he kind of semi recovered down the stretch, and in part, beating Kentucky 48-20 kind of kick started their turnaround for him to get another year out of that. But yeah, so many openings, and like you hit it, all these openings, and the state of South Carolina. I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if both of those guys are gone. I mean, Dabo and Beamer are both struggling. They're not, like you said, maybe as talked about, but Beamer kind of intimated that he really maybe wasn't inclined to go to Virginia Tech. That's where his dad went, and he wants to be his own guy and all that. But that was before all of their struggles, and
that was before they went from a top 10 team to fighting for bowl eligibility.
And they're turning on them, and they've been done with Shula, and now he's, I think, made a change as far as play calling is concerned, and he's, it's wide receivers coach or somebody's gonna call plays or whatever. Dabo, he's at that point where, hey, if you have 10 good years, it's been a good run. Has he overstayed his welcome? He's become a victim of his own success, Mr. Holier than thou, and all that. And
I feel Dabo, I kind of see him in the same vein. If Dabo leaves, I don't think it'll be because he's fired or bought out, or I don't even think it'll necessarily be because he takes another job. I think if Dabo leaves, it'll be very similar on the basketball side to what we saw out of Jay Wright, what we saw out of Virginia coach
Tony Bennett.
Tony Bennett. A lot of those guys, even Nick Saban to that example, guys who just kind of admit, I don't like where the game's going. I don't like where the sport's at right now. I don't like the transfer portal. I don't like NIL. I don't like revenue sharing. I'd rather walk away than deal with it. I said it, we saw a lot of coaches, a lot of coaches all across sports at all kinds of levels, top levels, medium levels, low levels, that, the sport's changing and you either adapt or you don't. And there's plenty of coaches who looked at the state of the sport and decided to take their ball and go home. And, you can respect that. You cannot respect. Jim Larinaga at Miami's another one. Even someone at a lower level, Cliff Ellis at Coastal Carolina, these are these are legendary coaches. These are coaches that found a lot of success in what they did, but they looked at where the state of the sport is right now. And they're like, I don't agree with it. That's not how I want to run my program. I've found my success. I can just be done with it. I think if Dabo's not the coach at Clemson, it's because he decides to retire. We obviously know he was pretty averse to NIL. He was pretty averse to the transfer portal. did not want to do it for the longest time. And we're seeing that in basketball too. Marquette, no transfers in that roster this year. That'll be interesting to see how Shaka Smart does there. But with Shane Beamer bringing on Shaka Smart, it kind of does remind me a little bit. If Beamer does leave, I think it would be a Shaka Smart leaving Texas kind of move.
Mm.
Um, when Shaka Smart left Texas to go coach Marquette, you could say Virginia Tech has stepped down from South Carolina. You could say they don't have the same upside as South Carolina. But you could also say, hey, I recognize that some things have not gone the way I wanted them to. In Shaka's case, it was, a couple upsets in the tournament. They lost to Abilene Christian his last year, I believe, as a 14-3 upset. Um, I'm not on the hot seat maybe now, but I probably will be going into next season, or at least those conversations are going to ramp up. I would rather just have a change of scenery and get a fresh start while my value is still high. Buy low, sell high. I'd rather keep my value as high as I can and go somewhere else than run the risk of
Mm.
getting fired and then not be able to get as many good jobs as I want after that.
Yeah, yeah. So it's interesting to see how they play it, and it's just gonna be the carousel is just wild, and it's not gonna stop. It's
It's
just
not.
reloading right now, just to ramp up and get even
We're
crazier in the future.
we're looking at all these teams right now that have already made a change or are going to make a change, and it's a lot. But I think a part that gets left out of this conversation in terms of the carousel is these coaches got to come from somewhere.
Yeah,
Lane Kiffin's obviously the hottest commodity in the market right now, but say Florida or LSU or Auburn poaches Lane Kiffin, well, now Ole Miss is open and
yeah.
Ole Miss joins the search.
Mm-hmm.
Say Beamer does leave South Carolina to take the Virginia Tech job. Well, now South Carolina's open. South Carolina joins the search. Maybe they promote Sumrall. Maybe someone grabs Sumrall. Then Tulane's open, and Tulane's searching for a coach. Maybe that doesn't
Yeah.
impact, some of the bigger schools as much, but that does impact the other schools that are open, like a UAB or a Kent State or even an Oregon State, for that matter,
Mm-hmm.
might be competing with some of the same coaches that Tulane
UAB are
might be.
already open. So,
Yeah, yeah, Dilfer just did not work out there.
yeah.
Um, but there's a lot of reason, you know, there's a lot of reason for a school like Kentucky to try to avoid the carousel cycle this year,
Mm.
as concerning as that is, because a lot of these jobs that are open now, a lot of the names that are linked to them are at other schools right now. Those are schools poaching other coaches, and then when they get poached, you're adding more and more and more and more schools to that pile. If you're someone like a Kentucky or someone that's even considered like an Auburn, even now, your hope is, God, I hope Arkansas just sticks with Bobby Petrino. God, I hope UCLA just hires their interim or their offensive coordinator and just keeps it in house. Like, you're hoping as many of these schools as possible that are open just make like some kind of in-house hire and not, join the search, because all it's going to do is limit your pool and probably up the bid you have to make to get some of these coaches that are highly sought after right now.
Yeah, absolutely. So, anything catch your eye on the depth chart and availability report for Kentucky, Florida?
Yeah, I need to look at the availability report. I know that just came out. The biggest thing, the depth chart did have some changes this week, we
Mm-hmm.
saw, which was interesting. We haven't had that since Cutter Boley took over for Zach Calzada. We did see two changes, both on the defensive end after that stellar performance in Auburn. So we saw, obviously, Kevis Thomas was was backing up DJ Waller, who's been out all season.
Mm-hmm.
We saw him a little bit against Eastern Michigan, saw him in a couple other games, just didn't quite see what we wanted to see out of Kevis Thomas. He was replaced by Nasir Addison, who came in, got the start in Auburn and played fantastic. I mean, he got targeted on the very first play of that game. Cam Coleman, one of the best wide receivers in the country, brought him down in open field, performed really, really well. Nasir Addison, who's also kind of dealt with some injuries this year, he played his heart out, and he is now the second corner, I believe field cornerback, not boundary cornerback. I believe field corner is what DJ Waller is. So he is the backup to DJ Waller now, Nasir Addison on the depth chart. And then second, Austin Ramsey replaced Josiah Hayes as the backup nose. Ramsey's a guy who came to Kentucky as an offensive lineman, made the switch. That's not super common. That way, usually you'll see a D lineman switch to O lineman, not usually O lineman switch to D lineman. But made the switch to D line, and he's been backing up a lot of those guys. He played really, really well in Auburn. He got a quarterback hurry. He got a sack, a big sack, and he played really, really well. Brad White was very complimentary of him after that game. He kind of got passionate when I asked him about it. He said everybody wants development to be a microwave thing. It takes time, and he's finally starting to break through. We're finally getting what we want to see out of Austin Ramsey. He replaces Josiah Hayes in the depth chart. Stoops was quite frankly rather blunt on Monday when asked about it. He was asked about Josiah Hayes and what's going on there. Obviously, he had his injury that kept him out last season, really put a damper on his career. He's a veteran guy. And Stoops' answer was, I believe, quote, like line for line, yeah, we've moved on from him. There are just guys playing better than him right now. That was the gist of it. Looking at this availability report, Troy Stellato still out at wide receiver. Jamarian Wilcox still out at running back. Ryan Nichols being out another week, a bit concerning. Obviously, we know he went out with injury. He had been playing backup for DJ Waller, gets injured against Tennessee. He'd already been kind of battling some injuries, doesn't finish the game against Tennessee. He is still out, it looks like. Jaden Smith, Devin Smith, Abba Selm, David Washington, Elijah Brown. Nothing too shocking there other than Ryan still being out. Just, not too shocking, but just continuing to deal with that. On the probable list, DJ Waller.
Yeah.
Second time's the charm, lads.
Mm-hmm.
Cleared to play against Texas, re-injures his hamstring in warm-ups. Positive sign that he's probable. Seems like he'll be good to go. Concerning to see the name, but good to see probable over Tavian Gadsden. He's been fantastic for Kentucky this season. I mean, the whole defensive line has been really, really stellar. We've seen Mike's Humphrey Grace play really, really well. David Gusta has been very strong. Khalil Saunders has been really good. And Tavian Gadsden's been phenomenal. He got I believe against Auburn, he had another pretty big play. Yeah, he had a sack and 2 solo tackles as well as a quarterback hurry. So another strong game from Tavian Gadsden. Good to see probable and exciting to see probable under DJ. We'll see if he is good to go. Do they go ahead and start him on Saturday, or do they keep Nasir in that spot and have Nasir kind of split reps with DJ? We'll see how that goes. It'll be something to look out for. But if DJ does play, it'll be the first time we've seen him since the Toledo game in week 1.
Yeah. So, be a welcome sight. Be a little nice addition. Been a long time coming. The setback where in warm-ups, was definitely a curveball that, you're like, oh yeah, gonna finally get him back, and then no, you don't. So yeah. Interesting stuff. I hate your boy Stellato is still out. But
just means he has more time to watch our Patriots win football games.
They are doing that.
We are doing that. Hey, it only took us a few years, but we're back.
Feeling good again.
We're
feeling
back.
Good.
Yes. Feeling good again.
Absolutely.
Feeling like everything's where it's supposed to be as my Celtics continue to tank.
Yeah.
We're actually up double digits on the Wizards right now. I'm keeping track of that here, but
you just can't mess that up, man. It's the Wizards. You can't, it's
the geriatric Wizards this year, I fear.
Yeah, absolutely. So the 10-3 game in football, and then the 28-15 first half against Nichols last night. I'm old. I keep wanting to say Nicholls State, but they dropped the state. Okay. You probably know.
In your defense, they only did that like a few years ago. I think even like it's not that long ago they changed it. I still want to say Nichols State too because that's what I know him as, but it is just Nichols now, which personally just feels wrong to me. That is my girlfriend's mom's alma mater, Nichols. Shout out Thibodaux, Louisiana. So it feels weird to say Nichols and not Nichols State, but there we are.
Way back in the day, before our time, it used to be Memphis State, but we're all just used to Memphis now. But it used to be the Memphis State Tigers, and I guess people back then went through the same. Well, I got to get used to saying Memphis and not Memphis State. So same thing. That's where Nichols is now in their transition. It was 28-15 in the first half. To me, Jasper Johnson getting in the paint was huge. He either would get in the paint and score or get an assist. And that, to me, was a big part of them having the 13-point lead and getting the 28 points that they pieced together in that first half before they kind of settled in and, scored 49 and, but Mark Pope saying it was good defense, kind of going glass half full on that first half as opposed to stuff tough to watch offense.
It was good defense.
It
was also Nichols State. Nichols. It was also Nichols. So, when we're looking at the landscape of college basketball, this is a Southland Conference team, and calling a what's the word? What's the phrase I'm looking for? Um, Calling something what it is.
Call a spade a spade.
Yeah, calling a spade a spade. Not a very wealthy one at that. We know that the modern era of college sports and what that goes. Nichols does not have a ton of money. They're in the Southland Conference, which usually isn't very good. I believe when Will Wade was at McNeese, they were favored by like $1 million to win that conference, and it wasn't even close. So it's some tough sailing there. And they've had some success. Obviously, they used to have former current South Alabama head coach, former Eastern Kentucky Colonel, Richie Riley, London, Kentucky's own. They used to be the head coach at Nicholls State. That was his first head coaching job before he got offered the job at South Alabama. But not a great team in the grand scheme of things. Not expected to do a ton this season. So it was good defense. It was also a pretty low tier opponent, if we're being honest with ourselves. Doesn't matter how well you're playing defense. A school like a Louisville, which you've got coming up, a Michigan State, they will have punished Kentucky far more than Nichols was able to in that one. But obviously, Mark Pope said after the game that they've been focusing so much on defense, they haven't really worked on offense all that much. They're still kind of getting some of their pieces together with Jalen Lowe still being out, Denzel Aberdeen being limited with what he revealed to us to be. Talked to him after the game. He revealed to us that was a strained groin, I believe, that he got in practice. So he said he felt good, but he was still on some limits. Trenton Noah goes down in that one, says he's good to come back. Trainers say he's good to come back. Mark Pope keeps him out of precaution. Looks like he rolled his ankle maybe in that one. That one was concerning. We saw, hitting the ground, had to be helped off the court, but he seems like he's going to be all right. So there are certainly pieces missing offensively, but the second half they came out, made some adjustments, and they played a lot better. Tevin Sadler, I believe, Nichols' coach, he said that in his press conference. He said, I think Mark Pope made better adjustments than we did in the second half. And I think a couple things that stuck out to me, Colin Chandler, first half, we saw the tweets from last year coming back out. Can this guy play basketball? Can he play in the SEC? Does he need to go somewhere else? And I think so much of that was more of just a product of Colin Chandler having to play point guard, which is not his natural position. Colin Chandler, sorry to burst him as well, is not a point guard. And they kind of had him running it because he knows Mark Pope. He knows the system. He's a returning guy. And it's not to say that he was awful. It's not his position, and the offense struggled. When he moved to his more natural position, he goes off. He ended up being Kentucky's leading scorer with 15, 11 second half points, and a dunk that won #1 on the SportsCenter top 10. I mean, that place was thrown into a frenzy after he slammed that ball down, cocked it back, threw it down. Great stuff from Colin Chandler in that one. He really shined in the second half. Denzel was less limited, it felt like, in the second half. The offense looked a bit more cohesive with him kind of getting back out there, more of a natural point guard. Obviously, it's still going to be better when Jalen Lowe gets back and Denzel can shift over to more hit where he wants to play as well. But I would agree with that. And I agree with what you said. Jasper Johnson, I think, he needs to go to the rim way more because nobody can stay in front of him when he's doing it. When he's driving, nobody can stay in front of him, and he's an animal down there. Still a few concerns. Obviously, you leave the night feeling a bit better. 26-point win, blowout win in Rupp Arena. Didn't cover the spread, if anyone cares about that. But you feel like you kind of dodged a bullet in that regard. And you kind of like, there was times in that one you're like, oh, don't let this one be close. And then it comes out, it's a blowout win. You feel fine. You're just like, let's just put that one behind us. Still some things to be concerned about. Obviously, the defense looked good, but the offense is going to have to pick it up. Really need to start seeing some of those shots fall from Cam Williams. He's kind of struggled thus far. I mean, obviously it's one game and 2 exhibitions, but he's kind of struggled thus far in what he was expected to be when he got, brought here from Tulane. Needs to see some of those shots fall. Trenton Noah also hasn't really found his 3-ball yet this season. But we'll also see how much of that is just their shots off and how much of that is Kentucky's been playing without a true point guard, so the offense is a bit harder to create. Some of those shots aren't coming as easily as they would otherwise. But in the end, a strong showing. Some good, some bad from Otega Owe, some good, some bad from Brandon Garrison, Malachi Marino, Mohamed Diabate. So Overall, though, Kentucky gets the blowout win. Nichols goes down. Kentucky is 1-0, and they welcome the Valparaiso Beacons from from Valparaiso,
From
Indiana.
Indiana.
Would help.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, well, they're from Indiana, but I was trying to think of the town, and then I was like, oh yeah, it's just Valparaiso.
Yeah.
Valparaiso, Indiana, out of the Horizon League, I believe. So we'll see how that one goes.
Yeah. So the final, what should be tune up before Louisville, which is ridiculous that game is November the 11th.
And it's not the only one.
Um,
Michigan State's coming up right after that. I mean, we're more used to the Champions Classic being that early, and Louisville being
yeah.
that early is really weird.
Yeah.
But
Uh-huh.
with Louisville moving up, you got two pretty big games there. I mean, Tom Izzo and the Spartans, they looked a little bit shaky in their first game, but they're still ranked pretty highly. They're expected to be doing some good things this year. No slouches. So you got Michigan State and Louisville in pretty quick succession coming up on the schedule.
Yeah. Yeah. So it gets real quick, a whole lot quicker than you said in the past. Way back, you had those games in December. You played, North Carolina back when Indiana was on there, Indiana, and
They're
then
back on there now,
Louisville.
though.
Yeah, and they are, they are. So, but yeah. So get Jalen Lowe back potentially Friday, and had the pro football doc on here Monday, and just kind of contrasting and comparing because this is 2 straight years starting point guards, shoulder injuries on the non-shooting shoulder, but how you got to manage that and try to get through it. And you know, just when Butler was getting as healthy as he's going to be, then he got hurt against Tennessee diving for the ball, and it just put him back, to square one, or from that standpoint. So hopefully, Low, and it's all the you go to contest a shot or reach out and deflect the ball. There's sudden movements that that you're not prepared for. Can he withstand it? Can he get through? And hopefully he can. The offense will probably look a whole lot smoother when he's out there. When you got a true point guard out there. No disrespect to Jasper, who is still a brand new true freshman. But he did some good stuff against Nichols. Getting in there, the little Dillingham 2.0 to his game, man. I love it, love it, love it, love
Yeah,
it.
I actually said that a few times. I see a lot of, they're not the exact same player by any means, and
Mm-hmm.
one's a bit more polished than the other in college, but I do see a lot of Rob Dillingham in Jasper Johnson. When I remember covering Rob Dillingham and covering Jasper Johnson, now I'm like, like that's who you want to see. He's fun, he's exciting, he's going to hit those crazy
Yes,
shots. He's also going to
yes.
attempt some shots that you're like, why are you taking that? But that comes with it. It's fun basketball, and I'm
Uh-huh.
very excited to see what his upside is. I think he can be very, very good. I also do think that as the season goes on, the same way, Mark Pope kind of worked with Colin Chandler last year,
Uh-huh.
and Jackson Robinson at BYU before that, so he could step into the Royal Kentucky. I wouldn't be shocked. Obviously, fingers crossed that there's no more health concerns with Denzel or Jalen Lowe for the rest of the season, but it would not shock me to see, especially in some of these easier games, maybe trusting Jasper a bit more to run the offense, kind of tailoring him to be an option, because as much as he is understanding the system, as much as he can be kind of a calming presence at times, I don't know that you really want Colin Chandler to be your third option at point guard going forward. I don't know that that's your goal long term. I mean, maybe year 3, year 4, Colin Chandler, you might give him the keys more. But I do think in terms of creating shots, in terms of creating a fast-paced, explosive, fun offense, Jasper Johnson might be better to kind of groom into that role of being the third option at point guard if you need to. So we'll see how that continues. But obviously, right now, true freshman playing in the first game of the regular season, you can't just give him the keys. You can't do
Uh-huh.
that. So I wouldn't shock me if they kind of use him a bit more in that role and try to kind of grow him into that for what's probably going to be a 1 year of him here, assuming he keeps on this trajectory. So it'll be interesting to see how that goes, and I wouldn't shock me to see them try to trust him in that role a bit more and maybe move away from using Colin Chandler as much in that role, because it's just become clear, especially after this game, Colin Chandler can be a very great asset for this team. He can be very, very good, just not at point guard. He does a lot of things very well when he gets the chance to play his more natural position, and he has a lot of fun with it, and he's fun to watch. Year one to year two, Colin Chandler is a big difference, but still not a guy you want running your offense.
Yeah, it's just and it's not a knock, man. It's just
Colin Chandler's
some
a
are
great 6-man. If you can get
yeah,
Colin Chandler to be like the first guy off the bench, in a like that kind of role, great 6-man candidate right there.
and some are the combo guard. They can be more. Some just point guards. Some are just two guards. But he's more. Put him at the two, put him at the three, and just let him do his thing over there. But
I
just
mean, I even felt like his shot looked better when he was in his more natural position. When he wasn't being forced to create his own shot as much, when he wasn't, leading the offense, I felt like he looked more confident shooting the basketball. And we saw that reflect in the point. We saw him get better looks. We saw him make better shots. And some of that's just, the offense being created for him. And some of that is he looked more comfortable and confident. And I think, especially in this one, it's not a stretch to say that a lot of the players looked very tightly wound to start the
mhm,
game.
mhm.
Obviously, you see a couple of those shots miss. You don't have your point guards. You're playing. You still have the stain of the Georgetown exhibition on your name. It's the same starting lineup as you got against Georgetown coming out in this one.
Mhm.
So it looked like they were all tightly wound. They weren't comfortable, and quite frankly, that's only going to make your shooting worse. When you get uncomfortable shooting, it only makes the shooting worse. And I think we saw that. They looked a lot more comfortable and confident in the second half. And when Colin Chandler shifted back to his more natural position, he looked more comfortable and confident. And that was reflected in an 11-point second half that led to him leading the team with 15 points and a SportsCenter top 10 number one moment.
Absolutely, because I was trying to pull it up and get it to share on here, but I was struggling. But everybody's seen it, but I was trying to have a little video on here. But yeah, and just the fact he was so meek in the post game when he dunked on dude's head, cocked it back, and talked to him, let him know about it too. Came down, looked at him, talked to him, said what he had to say on the way
Yeah,
back.
this guy, he's like night and day. He had that one in the exhibition, and he headbutts the ball afterwards. I'm like, who are you, Colin Chandler? Like, what are we doing? And then he gets in the post game, and he's like very polite, very
Yeah, yeah.
quiet. Like,
This is the first time that someone's ever jumped with me before. That was kind of different. This the same dude that was out here just
no, what's so funny to me is
saying it with his chest just 20 minutes ago, and now he's like, yeah, nobody's ever jumped with me before when I'm trying. I'm like, dude.
I mean, it's fun to me. It's he has the big dunk in the game. He's talking his talk, and he's very meek in the post game. But we asked Denzel Aberdeen, does Colin Chandler do that a lot in practice? Like, were you surprised? And he just kind of grins. He goes, "No, I wasn't surprised. He does it all the time. Like, that's how he plays." You know what that is? Him talking his talk, slamming it down, teammates knowing it, and then him being like that, very polite and meek. That's a man who's married.
I was
That's
thinking the same
that's a
thing.
man who's married.
I was thinking the same thing, man. Just tied the knot a few months ago, and it's got grown stuff to do after practice. Got a wife at home, and yeah, that's exactly. Well said, Cole. Well said. And it's still, I don't know, for me, I think maybe for a lot of fans that watch, you know, people get married 21, 22, 23 all the time. But when you're watching a college game and well, that dude's married, it seems so weird. Like, well,
Yeah, I
he's
mean,
20, he's 22 just like everybody else.
well,
But
I
you
think he's actually
think,
24. He went on his
yeah,
2-year mission.
yeah, you think college kids and oh no, these dudes are married. These just dudes out here hooping and got
Brandon Garrison has a
girlfriends.
child.
But
So
yeah. So it's
Brandon Garrison has a child. That surprised me when I found that. I was like, really?
yeah, a 2-year-old got a toddler, man. So yeah, absolutely. And brought him out there for Big Blue Madness, had his little earphones on, and
Sang happy birthday to him, I believe. So
absolutely. So yeah, but yeah, props to Colin. That was nasty, and you know, you deserved it. We all deserved it. especially everybody in Rupp who sat through the first half in person, something to really put a spark into the crowd. Yeah, Robbie
Oh,
Moss on the mic, and I think Noah Frary on TV. I had no disrespect to them. I did have Tom and Jack on at the time, had it synced up, so it was cool. Yeah, it was cool.
and
So
that was one of those crowd reactions that it wasn't just like a cheer and then going. That one was like a prolonged, like people were losing their minds after that dunk. They ended up calling a timeout after that, I think. Like it was the crowd could not quiet down. Even once the ball was like getting ready to be back in play, that it was just continual cheers and jeers.
yeah,
And that was a big moment for Rupp Arena. That was a great, probably the most alive the crowd was all night.
yeah, yeah. Because and Rupp gets the reputation for especially if it's not a big game or it wants to sit on their hands. And the old debate where the student section needs to be relocated or the older people need to be, and
Hey, I'll say they put down their wine and cheese for that dunk. They did put down the wine and cheese for that dunk.
as they should. So yeah, that put the juice in there, like you said, for a prolonged period of time. And yeah, other reactions were cool. So it was good to see. And I don't know, it's now you can rank it where you want to, if in Rupp Arena or Kentucky Dunks period, or the Dirk Minifield one from before our time is not gonna ever be topped. That was insane. But Willie Cauley Stein is in there, and Derek Anderson in '96 getting to do for Louisville and Indiana. I think both of those were on the road though, or neutral site, playing Indiana in Freedom Hall in Louisville or something like that. But still, a lot of good posters over the years, and Colin definitely in game one, of year two did that. So who knows what else he got in store? If that's what he's doing in game one.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm still excited for this Kentucky team. I'm still excited. Obviously, there was a lot of things we saw on on Tuesday
Yeah,
that were concerning. A lot of things that need to be corrected. We're going to see more of what this team is once we go against Louisville. I'll be going to Louisville for that one. So, bit of a travel there. I'll also be going to New York City. So that'll be
there you
fun
go.
for Michigan State.
Mm-hmm.
But
Mm-hmm.
I still think the sky is the limit for this team, but still some concerns lingering from that Georgetown exhibition for the first half of this one. But overall, I think by the time the game ended and you left the arena, most fans probably felt at least, fine. They at least felt fine.
Yeah, yeah, and you know, not weren't gonna go undefeated anyway. Losing the exhibition took maybe a little luster off for some, or kind of dampened the optimism. But the good thing, it didn't count, and you've hopefully learned a lot. And if Bart Pope says what he says is true, they hadn't really done any offensive work, so you gotta figure out some combinations and get some production together offensively. You definitely did. You had to focus on defense based on what happened last year. You know that, and that
Mm-hmm.
sounds like that's what they've done. Went hard getting the defense and the communication and talking and all that. Not a shot at Cal, but that's stuff that he had to teach every year. Every year he was talking about, we're not talking, and they're so young they don't even know how to talk. So they seem to be more advanced in that regard. And he's an offensive guy anyway, so getting those concepts in, I don't think should be hard. He doesn't seem to be worried about the fact they're not hitting threes and all that, and you think that should come around. Hopefully, it comes around at a high level next Tuesday.
Yeah, hopefully.
So we shall see, man. But we'll see him again on Friday against Valpo, against those Beacons when they come to Rupp Arena. I'll pop up there. Might get to see you in person with the meet. Did that with Aaron. Able to meet him in person. Doing all these shows virtually, and then it'd be cool to be able to say what's up to one another in person. So that'd be fun. So be in Lexington this weekend. Maybe there'll be a little cold weather for the Gators as they come to Lexington for a November game for the first time in ages. So
Actually, if you don't know this about me, alligators are my favorite animal.
oh,
I've got probably a dozen. Actually, I'm gonna go grab this. This is what sits by my door every day. I got this 3 years ago at a Halloween store. It sits by my door every day.
oh, oh,
Cat hates it. Cat does not like this guy, but
I bet.
uh,
The skeletal system on display, alligator anatomy.
I've got even more alligator stuff in my bedroom. They are my favorite animal. Love them to death.
Okay,
So
that's awesome.
always
Yeah,
fun to do a gator chomp, but Kentucky needs to beat the Gators. They do need to
absolutely,
do that.
absolutely. And they got confidence, and they got the best game to date to build off of from a whole. Offense took a step back, but all three phases. So they got the confidence, and they haven't quit. So yeah,
Yeah, on that note, something that I think's been really, really interesting about Kentucky this year that honestly for me, it's made me kind of, even doing my reporting, kind of question like when you analyze this team, do you look at them as a good team or a bad team? Do you look at them as a success or a failure? Obviously, the wins and losses haven't quite been there this season. And in the hot seat conversation, Stoops has been for quite a while.
mm-hmm.
A lot of people want to make a change there. Something that's been fascinating to me is even with the wins and losses not coming, even with, there being flaws on this team, the we came in the season, we came into the season talking about culture, talking about last year's team and how many of those players quit. It was not only evident from things that got leaked, whether that be players at the concession stand line or
Oh,
other things like that, it was evident watching the games. You could tell they had given up. There was a problem in the locker room. And Stoops doesn't really want to admit that. And I understand that. Those are your players. You don't want to throw them under the bus. Whether those are alumni, guys who are playing in the pros, or guys who are on the team still, or even outgoing transfers. I respect it that a head coach does not throw guys under the bus. I've always believed, in terms of coaching and leadership, that it would make my job a lot easier if they would throw guys under the bus for sure. But I respect when a coach does not do that, and I respect when players won't do that for their teammates. Whenever I played, I was never one to publicly say how I felt about my teammates' performances or my coach's performances.
mm-hmm.
Um, talk about it in the locker room, talk about it with my buddies, talk about it with a girlfriend, but I'm not going and like outwardly saying that. If I was walking the halls, I'm not out here bashing on other players and coaches. I respect that.
Mm-hmm.
But when you look at this team, the results have not been there. There's been so many frustrating, gut wrenching losses, but they have not quit.
No.
It's not just like it's not just a matter of they're saying they're not quitting. They genuinely don't look like they have. They're still saying, you know, we believe we can win games. We believe we are good enough to do it. They're playing, pardon my friend, they're playing their asses off a lot of the time. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, I think it's not going to go lost because it's a big moment. Cam Miller got the game ball for that performance against Auburn because Cutter Boley gets hit a little bit of a tipped ball, I want to say. Um, Throws his second interception in what easily could have been setting up Auburn to tie the game.
Yeah.
A disaster. And Auburn fumbles that football, recovered by Kentucky. That's what it'll say on the stat sheet.
Mm-hmm.
But it wasn't just a fumble. They didn't just drop that fumble. Cam forced that fumble.
Sure
Played
did.
DB in high school, knows how to play defense, more of a wide receiver by nature. A true freshman, mind you, who's probably going to burn his red shirt this year, goes out there, sees the interception in a game that the offense just hasn't really been able to get over that hump. They got in the end zone once, but it was a frustrating game. Last year's team, if that interception got thrown, it wouldn't have shocked me if that went back for 6. I mean, it would have been so easy to just been like, throw your hands up and just be like, oh my God, again, like we can't get over it. But they don't do that. They
Mhm.
don't do that. He went out there and he forced that fumble. It didn't matter how many times the punt team had to go out there. They gave the best possible placement on the punt, the best possible pinning spot on the punt. Didn't matter how many times the defense got a stop and the offense couldn't capitalize on it. The defense went back out there and made another stop. They just
Yeah.
kept going. I mean, that was something Brad White said after the game. He said they were locked in all game. He said at halftime they were locked in. He said they weren't frustrated, they weren't annoyed, they weren't anything at halftime. They were just like, let's go. If we can stop them from scoring, we will win this football game. That
Yeah.
was the message at halftime. If we can keep doing what we're doing defensively, we're going to win this football game. And they did. I think that obviously there's still some games to go, but you look at this team and compare it to last year's team and where it all went wrong under Mark Stoops last year. This team just has not quit in the way last year's team did. It
Yeah.
has not thrown in the towel. It hasn't given up. And they're playing, I mean, they're fighting for a bowl eligibility right now. They need a lot of things to go their way to get bowl eligible right now. But they're playing as if, that's not a factor. They're playing as if they're vastly better than their record shows. They're playing
Mhm.
as if they're still right there where they want to be. And I think that that's really admirable and really impressive from this football team and from the coaching staff, quite frankly. Um, I'm not saying necessarily that there's not still a lot of problems. I'm not saying necessarily that Mark Stoops will still be the coach next year. I don't have that answer. Um, but I am saying last year to this year, it is clear that when Mark Stoops said this is a better football team, the players are bought in, that the coaches are trying. I can tell, that
Mhm.
whether or not they win a lot of games this year, whether or not they end up getting to a bowl this year, I can tell the effort is clearly there. The players are clearly bought in. This is clearly something that they care about. The coaches have not given up. The players have not given up. And that does personally give me some hope going into this Florida game. Florida obviously playing under an interim coach. Not that those players have given up either, but
Mhm.
it's a winnable game. It is a
Yeah.
winnable game, and you have a chance to break that home losing streak. Um, and I think it's not crazy to say they could do it. I
Yeah.
think it's not crazy to say they might lose too. Florida's played close against some good teams this year. They clearly have some capabilities,
Yep.
but I think it's not crazy to predict Kentucky wins. I think it's not crazy to say they get back-to-back SEC wins.
Mhm.
And it's a testament to the efforts that have been put in by these players, by the whole program to keep the course, keep from getting deterred, keep from getting too high, too low, and just keep pushing forward. The big thing now is to see how we've seen how they recover from some losses. How do they respond to their first conference win?
That's
Is there
true.
is there a hangover, or do they get back to work and get right back at it?
Yep. That's the question. We'll find out Saturday night. So, y'all follow Cole, Cat's Pose, Cole Park WSC
Yes, Cole
on
Park
Twitter.
underscore WSC.
So, y'all follow.
Parke, by the way.
Yes. We got the threads going, um, giving you the lowdown from the press box. So, everybody check them out. Check us out at believe.com. Believe in Kentucky. Wherever you listen, wherever you watch, it is going to be there. Check out past episodes. Check out this one. We'll be back with more as well. See what happens with Valpo. We'll see what happens with Florida. Be back probably after the Louisville game. And then if there's breaking news stuff, I'll pop on here solo and go live. Or if we have an opening, Cole and I'll be on here live. If we join the fray, this coaching carousel, stuff like that. So appreciate everybody that takes the time to listen and watch. We'll say go Cats and end this episode for now. From Cole Park, my name is Vinny Hardy. It's been an episode of Believe in Kentucky on the Believe Network, and we will see everybody next time.